That's the recording started.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the second Housing Repairs online show and share at Newark and Sherwood District Council. In a moment, I'll share with you what we're going to cover today. But firstly, just a reminder of why we do these show and shares. Next slide, please, Kristen. They're an opportunity for us, the core team, to celebrate what we've achieved, demo any working software, and share information on the progress made. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for you, our collaborators and supporters, to give us feedback and ask questions. And we'll give an opportunity for you to do that at the end of this. Next slide. So what we're going to cover today. So in a moment, I'll remind you of who is in the core team, share our vision, before handing over to Mesa Canoni from Maytech, who will tell you how we're going to be using Terraform as part of this project. We'll then hear from Mel Crook, our user researcher, and Mike Knight, our interaction designer from Maytech, who will give you an update on our user research analysis and the key findings that were identified. I'll then give a quick update on the progress made in this sprint and our focus for the next. And then I'll hand over to Christian McIntosh from Newark and Sherwood, who is our product owner, who will tell you how you can engage with the project. And then there'll be opportunities for you at the end to ask questions. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So who is in the core team? Well, we have Christian McIntosh, as I say, is our product owner for Newark and Sherwood. Myself, Paul Clemson, lead delivery manager from Maytech. Dave Richardson, ICT and digital service business manager from Newark and Sherwood. Bhavesh Patel, lead engineer from Maytech. Sonia Lois, digital systems analyst from Newark and Sherwood. Andrew Dobby, also a digital systems analyst from Newark and Sherwood. Steve Turner, solutions developer from Newark and Sherwood. Mel Crook, our user researcher from Maytech. Mesa Canoni, our software engineer from Maytech. Mike Knight, our interaction designer from Maytech. And finally, Jamie Jordan, senior engineer from Maytech. So what is our vision? Our vision is to build a reusable and accessible online repair reporting tool that requires no login, and most importantly, residents prefer to use as it meets their needs. A tool that is integratable with various scheduling systems through open, scalable and accessible APIs, enabling the tool we hope to be adopted by local authorities across the UK. I'll now hand over to Mesa.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so as part of this sprint, we completed the Terraform tech spike, and I'll quickly explain what a tech spike is before kind of going into the Terraform. So a tech spike is undertaken when there are a lot of unknowns that need to be investigated, and tech spikes typically reduce the technical risk. It helps us get a better understanding of the requirements, and as well as the time that it might take to implement the solution. So we completed a tech spike to investigate the use of Terraform to deploy all of the infrastructure for housing repairs online. And Terraform is an infrastructure as code tool that lets you build, change, and version your cloud and on-prem infrastructure safely and efficiently. And the housing repairs online service is hosted in the cloud, and Newark's cloud provider of choice is Azure. So what Terraform allows us to do is to deploy all of the resources, such as the service itself and all the other pieces of infrastructure that it requires using code. It essentially automates the deployment process, and it makes it easy for anyone that wants to deploy the housing repairs online service to do so in Azure. So without Terraform, you would have to go into the Azure web portal and individually provision each of the resources manually, and this requires kind of knowledge of how the Azure web portal works, as well as what infrastructure is required to provision for the housing repairs online service. Next page, please. So this is a diagram, and it kind of helps us visualize Terraform's capability. So the top represents the process for what the deployment looks like for housing repairs online API without Terraform. So first you would have to fork or copy the repository. and the repository is just where the code lives from GitHub. And then you would go into the Azure portal app, Azure web portal, and you would manually create an app service to host the API. After that, you would manually create a Cosmos database, and this is where our repair is stored. Then once that's done, you would go and create a storage account for your images to be stored. And then you would take all of the credentials from these generated resources and you'd add them to GitHub, where GitHub Actions and GitHub Actions, which is where our which is what we're using for our CI/CD pipeline. And this pipeline would deploy our code to these apps that we've provisioned. And then at the bottom, you can see the step with Terraform. So the steps with implementing Terraform. So it cuts out the need for manually needing to provision these resources. So again, you would fork the repository, then you'd create something called a service principal that gives GitHub Actions the permissions to deploy resources. Then you'd add the service principal credentials to GitHub Actions, where you would just apply the Terraform command, and this will automatically run and provision all of the resources to deploy your application. So Terraform accelerates the deployment process. It's less error prone and it's repeatable. It's easier when other local authorities will want to adopt housing repairs online because it streamlines the deployment process. It also serves as a form of documentation for Nuix engineers, as it exposes kind of all of the resources that are required to deploy the service in one place. So the Housing Repairs online service consists of 3 APIs, and the next steps would be to apply the learnings from this tech spike to all of these repositories. And that's it.
Thank you, Mesa. Any questions from anyone before we move on? No? Okay. Mel.
Yes, so I will now take over. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, not not screen sharing. I just meant next slide. My apologies. Yeah, so for our research objectives, we actually wanted to see if the tenants could cancel or amend their repair appointments. And we tested that by asking them to book a repair and then either cancel or amend the appointment. We had 3 separate tasks and each participant had one to complete. Next slide, please. And we did this with 13 different tenants during 13 different sessions. It was face-to-face. The participants were between 20 and 70 years old, and they rated themselves in technical confidence between 1 and 7, and we had a good range. We had at least 1 of each. But we did struggle getting participants with accessibility needs. So that's something we're going to try and get this time round. So this is where I'm going to take this screen sharing. This is where I'm going to share my screen even. Hang on. There we go. So that's the link to the Miro board, which is where all the findings are sitting. So the success criteria was, let me actually double check. Can you all see the Miro?
Looks good.
Yes,
To me.
we can.
Yeah, okay. Because I can't see what you see anymore. It's quite nerve-wracking. So the success criteria was to see if they can actually submit a repair at the time of their choosing, to see if they can amend and cancel the appointment time, and all participants did successfully complete the tasks, which is good. So these are the actual tasks in more detail. I won't read through them, but the link is in the presentation for anyone who wants to have a gander. So the overall general key findings were that 11 out of 13 participants reported that they have been waiting for over a year for repairs, some as long as 3. 11 out of 13 participants said they would use their mobile phone to use a service like this. However, 10 out of those 13 participants said that they would still call to report a repair. and all participants completed the tasks, and all participants successfully completed the journey. So to start, this was the first screen they saw. So excuse the bad language, these are real quotes, some of them. I just realised I left it in. Yeah, one participant said she doesn't want to see all this information, and she was just bored with the start page, and she just wanted, I think Paul said it, she just wanted a big green button so she could start the repair. On my laptop screen, they had to scroll down to see the Start Now button, and people didn't struggled with that. So if they couldn't see the Start Now button, they didn't know where to go. A lot of people would click on the contact details page, which would take them. No, it wouldn't. It would take them to a separate tab, which was a City of Lincoln page, and that's where they would get stuck, and I'd have to bring them back. But once they did get to the next page, which was this, some participants got confused by what is an emergency, what isn't. Someone said what I might think is an emergency might not actually be an emergency. Participants were trying to make their problem fit into these options, and there was also, why do I need all these options? However, most understood that in order to continue, you need to click on something else. So the next question was if the problem is in a communal area. Everyone understood to say no. Some did have to consult the tasks to see if they were told to say if it's a communal area, but everyone understood to say no. The hint text here was well received as well. So there was, next page is what was the postcode. All participants use this page with ease. Just pop the little postcode in. The next page is to choose the address. Everyone used this page with ease. One person shared a story where they moved into a council property and the address had 3 different addresses. So it took them 6 months to get the addresses taken off. I imagine that must have been quite frustrating. However, he said it might be worth having a functionality just to be able to add the address if it's not listed there. And then next page is choosing where the problem is located. Everyone used this page with ease, and they liked having options to specifically choose where it is. Next page was what is the problem. The participants did struggle to pick out the option they need. But that's mostly because there wasn't reading what was available. Some people said, what if it's something else and we should maybe have a type box. However, once the participants actually read the options, they all found where they needed to what they needed to choose based on the scenario eventually. There was no issues with any of the triage pages. In total, everyone understood the title and what they were supposed to be doing in these pages. There was a suggestion to have a multiple choice, but I think that was because one of the scenarios, there was an extractor fan broken that was causing mold, and both of those, causing damp, and both of those are options. I don't think it's on this page. No, actually, yeah. So they suggested maybe a multiple choice. And then the page after that, what best describes the problem. Everyone found what they needed as well. The same person said they would also prefer to have a type box. And one person said it feels a little bit repetitive having the same 3 questions, but it was only the same to that specific scenario because it was broken taps. So on every page they have to choose broken taps. then on this page, participants read the hint text before using the type box and to ensure what we were asking of them, and they liked being able to type out the problem in more detail. Only 5 out of 13 participants would upload the photo, and the remaining 8 just scrolled past it. One participant said that uploading the photo could speed up the process, so engineers could see what they needed from the photo instead of having to come out for an initial visit. One participant that did upload a photo didn't understand the error message on this on the page. When she uploaded a photo, it comes up here, but she continued anyway. And then when are you available, which is the next page. They liked having time slots to choose from, as at the moment I believe you get an all-day appointment rather than having time slots to choose from. They understood what they needed to do here without any hints, and one participant even noticed the next 5 days and asked if it's always going to be 2 slots. On to the next page was most participants chose a text message. If a tenant was booking a repair for someone else, they would use the other person's phone number, which was good as well. So if they said text message, it would take them to, can we call the number they inputted if we needed to get in touch? Most participants said yes. A couple said no, which takes them to prompts them to add a different phone number. One participant entered a landline number to avoid getting calls from the council to her mobile, and I think another participant added a landline purely because he said his mobile phone is just an alarm clock, which I thought in itself was quite funny. And the next page is the request summary, which most people didn't actually read, they just scrolled through. But they thought when they reached the request summary page, before they scrolled down to see request repair, they thought they were done, but they all knew to scroll down anyway and request the repair. So that all did complete the journey, which takes them to repair request complete, which most people would expect the repair number to be emailed or texted to them. One person was worried about losing the code even if it's sent to them. And because we asked them to amend or cancel the appointment directly from this page, participants struggled to see how to do that from this page, and it wasn't obvious. And when this link was pointed out to them, all participants understood what they needed to do in the journey. So all participants used this page with ease, just popped a repair number in and a postcode. They understood to add a security code. However, some people were seeing passcode and thinking it says postcode, and suggested that maybe we call it an access code instead. And then next page was this, and participants really liked having both options right here, not having to do 2 different journeys to get to this page, where it would bring up their appointment, and then now they can cancel or change the appointment, and they liked having both options there. And then to cancel the appointment, it just says if you choose cancel here, it would take you here and say, are you sure you want to cancel this appointment? All users ticked yes and confirmed, and they were really happy with that journey, how easy it was. And then if you chose to amend the appointment, it would take you back to choosing the time slot, which all participants liked, and then you would get a confirmation that your appointment has been changed, and everyone liked how easy it was. And the same with cancelling, everyone liked how easy it was, and it even got called perfect. So we're doing something right here. But yeah, that is everything for the research findings. So unless there's questions, I will hand over to Mike, who will show us how we addressed the changes.
I have a question, just if that's okay. You said 10 of 13 people said they would still like to phone up, and that's a surprising number. I'm curious as to whether you have any understanding of why they prefer to phone up anyway.
I think when I presented this initially in-house, what the conclusion we came to was that it's because it's the sort of type of people that came to these sessions, like they had time to sort of sit and wait in the queue to ring up. We imagine if it comes to people that work and don't have the time to sit in the queue to ring, would just use an online service.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And we're sorry, I'm just going to add to that. We are seeing that at the City of Lincoln Council. We're seeing people booking repairs outside of the normal like day hours of like 9 till 5. So we're seeing people booking repairs at 6 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Jide, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Just a quick question here with regards to, and it follows on from what you were saying, Melanie, about the people who are keen on ringing. What's the age bracket there for the sample that you used for this particular piece of work? What was the age bracket? Was there were you aware of what that was?
Yeah, so the age range was actually quite wide. We had some people in the 20s, we had some people in the 70s, and every sort of age bracket in between. Okay, so in terms of the percentage of each particular age bracket, was it consistent or was it inconsistent? Were there more in the higher ages who wanted to ring up, which is often the case? I wouldn't say for this particular one was consistent, but again, I assume that's just because of that they had time to come to research, so therefore they have time to ring and wait in the queue. Yeah, okay, that's interesting, thanks.
I'll add a question there, Mel. So in terms of those who wanted to call, were they in the low digital confidence group?
Again, there was we had I asked them to rate themselves from a 1 to 7, 7 being the highest, and we had 6s and 7s say that they would still ring.
Sorry, I got myself on mute there. I was just wondering, so some of the things that you've highlighted in the journey, the user journey, and the things that they either felt should be revised or presented differently, those are things that obviously this is an iterative process, and we've looked at this in other local authorities and we've had engagement from users on the whole process. And these are things that in some local authorities that they've not come up as issues before. I can't remember some of these being part of the project team in previous iterations. So it's actually interesting, some of the comments here. And I don't want to go into the granular detail because that would take too long, but it's actually quite revealing how things change between different geographic locations.
Scott, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just talking from a Lincoln experience, we have it's quite a small council stock. So one of the factors to justify why 10 and 13 might ring is because we tend to have personal relationships with our customers. We tend to know them, so they get comfortable in knowing who they're speaking to. Probably at your bigger authorities where you've got more properties, that won't be a factor. You're not going to know them. But if you think we've got, I don't know, 8,000 council properties, but probably 500 of them ring us regularly, my staff know the customers, and the customers know my staff by name. So it's a different kind of relationship. So that is always a factor certainly in a smaller housing stock council. Just the thing I thought I'd mention.
No, thanks for that insight, Scott. And it may be that because Newark and Sherwood are a similar size to Lincoln, that may also be the case. Patrick, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Sorry, this might is my bad memory that I'm asking this. But so the initial the designs you've seen, or that was used, excuse me, that prototype, was it in regards to the booking slot? Was that designed on the basis of no integration with a back-end calendar? And I'm just getting at that because there was some comments in regards to only showing 2 slots per day. So I was just wondering, is that essentially what logic was kind of providing those kind of slots? Is that based on what's actually available, or what's the thinking? Sorry, behind that.
Sorry, Patrick. Yeah, initially it was based on the user research and we reduced the number of slots that was there from DRS from 4 down to 2 when we was working at Lincoln. At Newark, I believe they were only offering all-day slots.
No, we've got 4. So we have got the 4 slots, and that's what's been requested, and we'll be going in when we actually progress.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Chris. We're going to add the school run to the 2 slots that we have in the prototype. So it's a mixture, Patrick, of like user research and what is available via the DRS system.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then we'll pass on to Mike.
Just pausing to see if there was any more questions. I love it. Hello. So yeah, I just wanted to illustrate kind of some of those changes that have been made off of the back of that user research. You know, after witnessing the behaviours of our users, sort of I've been able to identify kind of areas of improvement for them. So the first change that I will show you kind of based not just on those user behaviours, but also how we can kind of best serve them beyond the service. So, you know, speaking with the users, we found that a lot of times the repair worker would come, take a look, sort of validate that a repair is needed before then reorganising the time to come back. Obviously, a really kind of frustrating thing for the user. And having a photo with that repair request can really kind of help triage the repair and potentially stop the need for the extra the visits. And Mel did speak about you know, the users kind of skipping over the upload picture, and that's what we saw. And we did ask them to upload a picture, but it was at the end of that description page. So the idea really is to kind of pull that field from that page and have its own page, kind of bringing more of a focus and a required action, you know, whether that is to upload or whether it is to continue without uploading. It's more of sort of users focus. So you'll see on the right there that with that page that's been pulled out. Now it is important that we do keep that as an optional field. We don't want to create a blocker that's stopping users from progressing. You know, should they not have an image, it's still really important that they can complete the journey. But yeah, as I said, sort of bringing more of a focus to that. Another change that we made, if we go to the next slide, was based sort of on the behaviors of users on these kind of action pages, exit pages, sort of whatever you want to call them. These pages require an action beyond our service. So that's either to call or to open up web chat. So during testing, we saw that when users got here, they were kind of confused as to what the next step was. So what we did was just, and it's just a slight tweak, was to create a visually distinct element in the hope that this creates a kind of a contrast and a visual hierarchy to guide the eye of the user to what is ultimately important on this page. So you'll see on the right there, and as I said, it's just a small tweak, but just giving the information and indent and that kind of grey border on the left hand side there. So sticking with these pages, on the next slide, we did see a few users misdiagnose their issue and fit into these kind of emergency repair that we list at the beginning there. I know Mel touched on it. So at this point, the users were reading the emergency page and did realise that they didn't fit into this. They didn't think that it wasn't an emergency. And then users were kind of confused as to what to do next, with kind of only the most digitally skilled going back a page and kind of re-diagnosing. The others were just kind of stuck here, unsure what to do. So we want to create a journey where, you know, users don't have to go back. You know, we want a kind of linear forward journey. So adding this link to the bottom of the page, saying my problem is not an emergency, mirrored what users were saying to us during UR, means that they by clicking that, they can then continue forward through the journey. So it's just a few examples of the things that have changed based on that user research that we did. That was me.
Paul, you're on mute.
Sorry, very 2020. Sorry about that. Any questions before we continue for Mike on what is just information he's just provided? Scott? Hiya.
Yeah. You know that in the slides before where it showed about the free text box, is that an area where you're going to explore? I'm just conscious that having used the system for a while, take-up's been really good, but I think customers would like it expanding to a wider range. And so if we did have an option, so for instance, like an example, fencing and guttering, because everyone wants their fencing doing. So I just wonder whether that might be a good option to explore, like a free text box that then sent a request to customer service, maybe didn't create a appointment, but allowed the customer to continue in that journey and report an alternative repair to us. Because I'm finding in some cases they either stop in that process or they report it on another option, which we don't really want. So I like the idea, the idea from the user research about a free text box for something else. Just something to maybe we could explore.
Thanks, Scott. I'm sure we'll take that insight from yourself and consider that in the design of the journey as we go forward. Jide, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. 2020 as well. Couldn't get myself off mute on time. Can't even get to the camera as well. Just to pick up on the free text thing, because I'm kind of not really in favour of it for a number of reasons, because we did look at this earlier on in the journey to get to the prototype, and one of the things that was dealt with in user research or looked at in user research was a free text field and how that would manifest itself in the process. And we found it added in layers of complexity, because obviously people have different ways of expressing themselves. When given the opportunity to express themselves in a free text field, sometimes it's actually working out what they're actually trying to say. So that can actually add complexities into the process, and it gives people the surety that they've actually expressed the problem in their own terms, but it doesn't actually make it easy to actually diagnose the problem. I think that was where we landed with the photographic evidence, because photos don't lie. Whatever you see, it's fairly clear. So I understand why people would want it. I don't know how much value it would add, would be my principal concern there. But obviously that's something that you will look into and decide on. Yeah,
thank you, Jide, for that feedback. And I think it's something that The product team, along with Kristen, will determine where is the balance that you need to find in this journey, and whether we need to provide additional text boxes or not. So let's move on then. So in terms of progress made in this current sprint, as you've heard, we performed a text bite in how we use Terraform. We conducted the first round of user research, and you just heard from Mel and Mike around the analysis and the key findings, and also how those key findings are now reflected in the prototype that we're building. We've updated MVP service pages to reflect the key findings, and also Newark and Sherwood customization. We've integrated Sentry monitoring now into all 3 APIs and also the front end. And finally, we configured SOR codes from service configuration, and that makes the mapping of the information that users enter into the service to SOR codes easier. Next slide. So what will be our focus in the next sprint? Well, we'll continue to refine the prototype. We'll commence provisioning of infrastructure for each API using Terraform. We'll perform a couple of text spikes to deepen our understanding how we integrate with the Capita housing management system, and also validate the DRS configuration at Newark and Sherwood, and see how similar that is to the configuration at City of Lincoln. We'll commence design now of the communal repair journey, and we'll plan for the second round of user research in early July. And finally, we'll continue to update MVP service pages, like I say, to reflect key findings and also Newark and Sherwood customization. I'm now going to hand over to Kristen.
So just a reminder really on how to engage with us. We have our website still, so latest blog posts will go up on a regular basis. If you're interested in getting involved, please do reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Love to keep hearing the feedback as well. Give us more information on how we should be developing the product and other viewpoints, because that way it avoids us just developing it with 1 or 2 councils in mind. Lastly, just to say as well, we did do a Digital Leaders Week presentation. Paul's going to share the link in the chat. If you're interested in having a look at that, please do so. That's something we did just around the project, and why get involved, and covering user journeys and the importance of that. So that was hopefully a good session. We've already had some positive feedback on that. But do get in touch, please get involved, and I think I now have back to Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. So yeah, we're opening up now for any further questions or feedback. I think we've had quite a few questions as we went through the presentation. But if there is any further questions or feedback that you've got, then please reach out to Kristen through the blog, and we'll answer those. Otherwise, if there's no further questions, then thanks everyone for attending. Again, I think this has been a really great interactive session with you, our collaborators and supporters. And we look forward to engaging with you again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
team.
Thanks.